Hi there and welcome to joining us on the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on For You Television. Our big stories of tonight. A meeting between Ghanaian Prime Minister Mohamed Bavougui and political parties to ease tensions in the country ended fruitless yesterday. Plus, Human Rights Watch in its latest publication has accused the non-state armed group in the Northwest region and Southwest regions of gross human rights violation following their last attack on the Manfred District Hospital. The series of kidnappings and the demand for ransom still very much alive in the two English-speaking parts of the country. And of course, in sport, Fecafoot President Samuel Eto'o has reaffirmed his commitment with the people of the Northwest region in the construction of a modern football arena. He made a declaration in Yaoundé yesterday while closing a 3-day capacity building workshop of sport journalists in the country. Once more, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for trusting us. I am Tekewana at the anchor. We begin this day from Guinea, where we are told that Guinean Prime Minister Mohamed Bavougui has met with political parties recently to ease tensions in the country. Of course, to say that he met with political parties to seek ways to return of peace in Guinea. And of course, the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution suspended its call for a demonstration that was due to be the first major protest rally under the Transitional Council. So here in this report.
The National Front for the Defense of the Constitution has called for people to take to the streets on Thursday in defiance of a recent protest ban announced by the military leaders who overthrew former President Alpha Condé in September.
Nous avons déjà mis un conseil interministériel en place, un groupe de collègues.
We have already set up an interministerial council, a group of colleagues. We are going to refine the group as we go along. You also have to get organized. The government is counting on the good faith of all the participants in this consultation.
La bonne foi de tous les participants de cette concertation.
Guinea has been ruled by a military transitional council since September last year after a coup d'etat by Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, with a transitional period to last for 3 years. The meeting between the country's political forces comes less than a week before a summit of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which is expected to decide on an extension of economic sanctions. 2 attempts at consultations have already taken place since early 2002, but they were boycotted by a number of organizations, including the National Alliance of Change and Democracy and the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution. This time, both political coalitions were present. The FNDC, which had orchestrated months of mobilization against Mr. Condé from 2019 to 2021, had suspended Wednesday its call for a demonstration against the duration of the transition to give a chance to dialogue proposed by the Prime Minister. However, he posed as precondition for its participation in the dialogue, which is the acceptance of a mediator of ECOWAS, while the Rassemblement du Peuple de Guinée, the former ruling party, has refused to take part and conditions its participation on the release of its imprisoned leaders and an end to the prosecution and arrest of political leaders.
You can't have a dialogue when there is no framework. But the Prime Minister says that the next meeting is on Friday. I don't know, the 1st of July. And that people still have to send contributions. There is no will. It's a total disappointment. But I think that we did well to participate.
Participants at the meeting have been urged by the Prime Minister to forward suggestions to him by July 1 on the way out from the socio-political tension the country is facing. No new date has been announced yet for the parties to meet again and trash their differences once and for all.
Now, let's get over to Libya. Once upon a time, Libya was considered an El Dorado in the African continent because of its enormous resources when it comes to oil reserves. But today, shockingly, Libya has become something else. There is plenty of crisis ever since Muammar Gaddafi died. To date, peace is said still to be returned in that part of the African continent. As you tell us more, Leyuga for Nyonga.
The Libyan National Oil Company on Monday wants to declare a force majeure on its facilities in the North Gulf of Suez within 72 hours, as it is unable to meet its contractual obligations due to the forced closure, invoking a state of force majeure alongside the company to be released from its contractual obligations while exonerating it from another responsibility for its non-performance. Plunged into chaos, Since the fall of Muammar Gaddafi's regime in 2011 and plagued by division between the east and west of the country, Libya, endowed with most abundant reserves in Africa, is in the grip of a serious institutional crisis. Two governments have been fighting since March, one based in Tripoli and led by Abdel Hamid since 2021, and the other led by Fathi Bachanga and supported by the camp of Marshal Khalifa Haftar, the strongman of the east. In the context, 6 oil fields and terminals in the east of the country were forcibly closed in mid-April by groups close to the eastern camp, demanding the transfer of power to Mr. Bachanga. Despite the country's oil wealth, Libyans face a dozen hours of power cuts a day, while the temperature hovers around 40 degrees.
Now, let's talk about illegal immigration in the world. Very often, we do hear that Africans travel out of the African continent to Europe in search of greener pasture. Now, it is rather Europeans traveling from one European country to another in search of greener pasture. Shocking it is, right? Yeah, that's the world for us. Now, it is rather unfortunate that most of those who were struggling to get into the US of A met their doom at a lorry point. We are told that 46 of them were discovered dead in an abandoned lorry. Officials have described the scene as horrific, as we hear in this report.
In fire, officials said 16 people, including 4 children, had also been taken to hospital. The survivors were hot to the touch and suffering from heat stroke and heat exhaustion. San Antonio, which is 250 kilometers from the US-Mexican border, is a major transit route for people smugglers. Human traffickers are said to often use trucks to transport undocumented migrants after meeting them in remote areas once they have managed to cross into the United States. According to officials of San Antonio, it's nothing short of a horrific human tragedy. They added that the vehicle, which had been abandoned by its driver, had no working air conditioning and there was no drinking water inside, which is a clear indication that the victims died from heat exhaustion and dehydration. 3 persons are set to be held in custody, and investigations have been handed over to federal agents. Mexican Consul General Ruben Moniti has been dispatched to the scene, and the consulate in San Antonio said it would provide all the support if Mexican citizens are among the dead. However, this story had played out in San Antonio before, but not to this magnitude. In 2017, 10 immigrants were found dead inside a similar tractor trailer outside a Walmart, also on the city's south side. San Antonio's far south side is a corridor with 2 main highways connecting the city to Texas border towns. Immigration is a continuous political issue in the United States, where in May, a record of 239,000 undocumented migrants were detained crossing into the country from Mexico, many traveling along extremely risky and unsafe routes. The U.S. law enforcement officials are on the track to exceed the record of 1.73 million border arrests made in 2021, with a large number of people continuing to cross from Central American countries such as Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Fleeing poverty and violence in Central America, according to experts, have been identified as the principal cause, while many of the undocumented migrants keep risking their lives daily and end up paying huge sums of cash to people smugglers to get themselves across the U.S. border, where they hope to find a better life.
Now, let's talk economy in this newscast, where heads of states, representatives of the scientific community and private sector, as well as civil society activists, are meeting in Lisbon, Portugal, to find answers to the growing need of sustainable exploitation in the energy sector, as we hear in this report.
The Exigence Decree in Lisbon, Portugal can only be overcome if humanity manages to resolve different contradictions. For example, the deep sea extraction of fossil energy resources collides with the preservation of the oceans. This is at the center of discussion of the 2022 United Nations Conference to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14 under the theme Conserve and Sustainably Use the Oceans, Seas and Marine Resources for Sustainable Development.
Heads
of state and government, representatives of the scientific community, the private sector and civil society will seek at this summit to find answers to the growing needs to implement new paradigms of sustainable exploitation of the immense resources that the oceans place at our disposal, which we must seek to exploit in an increasingly sustainable way and to preserve for future generations.
Para gerações vindouras.
Fossil resources, experts say, are sources of wealth that no country can do without, especially when they allow other development goals to be reached.
Saibamos que a questão da exploração de hidrocarbonetos, tal como outras explorações que se fazem a nível do mar.
Although we know that the issue of exploration of hydrocarbons, like other explorations that are done at sea, has some bad effects, no, if we don't control the situations, we have other benefits that are related to our development indexes. Naturally, for a country like ours, we have to resort to these resources in order to overcome certain needs that are pressing in our society.
Ultrapassar certas necessidades que são prementes na sociedade.
However, the balance is delicate but possible, although the energy paradigm shift is needed.
Oil and gas industry has been tightly regulated, and biodiversity can coexist with sustainable operations if they are properly licensed with environmental impact assessment. I understand in developing countries revenues are extremely important. I understand we are in a crisis of fossil fuel need at the moment. However, the bigger crisis, the bigger picture, is the climate, it's the effect it's having on the ocean.
To face these challenges, experts insist the political decision makers or economic agents cannot do it all alone. Thus, it is a collective battle for all. After all, we are all energy consumers.
Now, some time ago, the Central African Republic announced that it is going to adopt cryptocurrency as a currency. Despite threats from BIAC and other CEMAC member states, the officials from the Central African Republic have given a deaf ear. Now, they have decided to call the name of their new currency as Sango. A date has been announced as July 3 when this currency shall officially go operational. As you tell us more, Nota Bianke.
The President of the Central African Republic, Faustin Archange Touadéra, has announced that his government will support initiatives centered on developing blockchain infrastructure in the country. Touadéra, on his social media handle Twitter, said the Central African Republic government would launch Sango, a crypto initiative proposed following the country's adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in April, captioning, "With Bitcoin as legal tender and inspiration, our country opens a new chapter in its inspiring journey towards a brighter future via blockchain tech. Everyone is welcome to witness the Sango Genesis event that will be broadcast on the 3rd of July. According to the Sango website, the government intends to launch a programming during the July 3rd event where the president, members of his cabinet and industry experts will discuss the physical and digital infrastructure Central African Republic will need to enter the crypto space as well as the legal framework for the country. Sango's project plans include building a legal crypto hub that aims to attract global crypto businesses and enthusiasts, expanding Bitcoin adoption in the country, and creating a virtual crypto island as a special economic zone in the metaverse that will likely have equal space in the physical world. According to Sango, Central African Republic plans to have a specific legal framework for crypto by the end of 2022, which is an ambitious strategy to quickly build a successful economy which can only rely on new technology that have taken the world by storm and taken money to new heights, with Bitcoins as the watchword. Touadéra and the country he governs plans to adopt crypto, which appears to be modeled on El Salvador, whose Bitcoin Act states that digital currency legal tender takes effective in September 2021.
Now, let's make a stop in Cameroon, whereby it has been practically 5 years and counting that the ongoing Anglophone crisis started. And ever since this crisis started, one of those key associations that have been keeping a close eye on the crisis has been the Human Rights Watch. When the government goes beyond or do what is not actually right, they criticize. When it is a part of the separatists, they do that as well. Of recent, their report shows that the separatist movement has been violating human rights grossly in the English part of the country, to an extent that they quote a clear example of the Manfei District Hospital, which of course was burnt recently, and of course the kidnappings and demands of ransom, which of course continue plaguing the northern and southern regions. Our reporter, Nota Bianchi, read through their report and packaged this report for us.
Human Rights Watch said that armed separatist fighters have killed at least 7 people, injured 6 others, raped a girl and committed other grave human rights abuses across Cameroon's Anglophone regions since January 2022. In an uptick of violence, the separatists have also burned at least 2 schools, attacked a university, kidnapped up to 82 people, including 33 students and 5 teachers, and threatened and beat 11 students. Between April 1st to June 15, Human Rights Watch interviewed 38 people by telephone, including 27 victims and witnesses to separatist abuses, 3 relatives of victims, 4 Cameroonian journalists, and 4 members of Cameroonian human rights organizations. Human Rights Watch also reviewed medical records, 13 videos, and 56 photographs shared directly with Human Rights Watch researchers or posted on social media showing evidence of separatist abuses. Fighting to create an independent Anglophone state of Ambazonia since 2016, separatists target civilians who do not observe their call for school boycotts or general lockdowns. These abusive calls trample the basic rights of an already terrorized civilian population, and separatist fighters and their leaders should be held accountable and punished for their violent enforcement. Since 2017, armed separatists have kidnapped hundreds of people, including students, teachers, medical staff, humanitarian workers, clergy, and government officials. They have also killed and tortured civilians and carried out widespread attacks on education. They have also intimidated human rights defenders, the latest attack being on April 30th, the kidnapping of the ruling party Senator Regina Mundi alongside her driver in Bamenda. Human Rights Watch is calling on the Cameroon's regional international partners as they should intensify calls on the Cameroonian government for accountability and better protection of civilians. They should also impose targeted sanctions such as travel bans and asset freezes on separatist leaders who bear responsibility for committing abuses.
Now, let's talk sports. It's been practically 6 months that Samuel Eto'o Fils emerged as president in the House of Chinga, that is the Cameroon Football Federation, FECAFOOT. Within the last 6 months, a lot of changes has been witnessed. During a presser yesterday to close a 3-day workshop in Yaoundé with sport journalists, he took out time to outline some of his achievements, counting 10 days, counting 6 months in the House of Chinga. And one of those big stories that he made mention of is the construction of a modern stadium in Bamenda, the chief town of the Northwest region. For aside that, what other issues Samuel Eto'o Fils reviewed? Gather this in this report.
There were more than 25 sport journalists drafted from the 10 regions of the country who for 3 days were trained on football reporting and the activities of the Cameroon Football Federation FECAFOOT. In his closing remark at the end of the workshop, FECAFOOT President Samuel Eto'o Fils recognizes the pivotal role sports journalists play in the development of the King sport discipline.
Vos aînés ont répondu à notre appel.
You who responded to our invitation, we say thank you, for it is a sort of moral booster to help us meet the aspiration of our fans. You determine if we are productive or not through the critics we do receive from your different platforms. We do our best to ameliorate our policies. Talk less of your contribution to give football lovers reasons to go to stadia and support our different teams. You are all indispensable in making the game beautiful.
Et nos millions de supporters.
However, Eto'o equally revealed that the brewing giant Le Brasserie du Cameroun has agreed to be part of a national stadium construction campaign and will bankroll projects to build stadia across Cameroon, but particularly in the Northwest region.
Le stade sera construit dans la région meurtrie du Nord-Ouest.
Nonetheless, organizing a capacity building workshop for sports journalists in Cameroon was one of the promises that the Eto'o team made while gunning for the top job at FECAFOOT. 6 months down the line, it was important for Fecafoot boss to present his balance sheet to the press, which of course is full of positive record, this far particularly reconciling the existed fractions, ensuring transparency in the financial management of Fecafoot, regular payment of salaries of local players, and many others. Just 6 months into office, at the helm of Fecafoot, he too has left his mark in the house whose controversies have known no bounds and existed even before the arrival of the legendary attacker.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's much we could gather for you today, this Tuesday, June 28, 2022. We want to thank you all immensely for your kind attention. God willing, we shall be back here tomorrow for what must have made news in Cameroon, Africa, and the world. Until then, it's goodbye from Jerusalem, Israel. Goodbye from Gaborone, Botswana. God bless Motherland Africa. Bye-bye.